Good morning. Welcome to Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace. Welcome to the soul of Sunday. We are Unitarian Universalists. Ours is a historic faith with a progressive theology. We affirm the worth and dignity of every being, and that we are deeply interconnected. We are bound to one another, not by creed, but by covenant, and we are called to love, with open minds, open hearts, and open hands. Whoever you are, those of all nations, all creeds, all colors, all kinds of love, you are welcome here. As we gather, we acknowledge that Arlington Street Church occupies the ancestral homeland of the Massachusetts. By making this land acknowledgement, we recognize, honor, and affirm the sovereignty of all First Nation peoples. Welcome Zoomers, and welcome those here in the sanctuary on this warm summer day. Tech team, I want to thank you so much for the volunteers and everyone that's here. Our tech team is Sandy Dixon on the Zoom deck, Frank Lee is on the Zoom chat. Keith Perrin is behind the camera. Art Nava is on sound. Thank you to the Great Doors team, ensuring that we can gather together safely in person. Daryl Waters, Barbara Gindhart, and Rachel Corey are our greeters, and Bill Briggs is our lead usher. Thank you to our musicians, Andrew Stack and Hannah Schoenfeld. Our worship coordinator today is Art Nava. Hannah rapid tested this morning, so she can sing unmasked. We've closed the first 4 pews up front to keep everyone safe. A reminder that those in the sanctuary should be physically distancing from those who are not in your family or pod. And when your pew is full, please close your pew door so people who arrive after you know that it's full, even if you're the only one sitting there. Finally, for those who are new to Arlington Street, a very special welcome to you. Please go to ascboston.org and sign up for Snapshot, our electronic newsletter, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Whether you've been coming here for years or today is your first time at Arlington Street, welcome home.
Good morning. If you haven't already downloaded today's order of service, it's available in the chat and on the homepage at ascboston.org. For our guests here in the sanctuary, there are printed copies at the Great Doors. As we begin our greetings, I invite the Zoomers and those here in the sanctuary with a device handy to please say hello in the chat and tell us where you're zooming in from. And now, Keith is going to turn the camera on the incarnate congregation as we wave and smile at each other, as well as at our friends in the Zoom room. And you all in the Zoom room can wave and smile back. Hello, friends. Let's all engage that Arlington Street spirit of welcome that transcends physical distance as we greet one another heart to heart. Now please rise in body, rise in spirit for the first hymn, We Shall Be Known.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time to lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change and life from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time to lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. Open my heart to be a sanctuary, all made holy, loved and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
It is now time for our treasured ritual of sharing community candles of sorrow and joy. These candles were submitted on our website by the Friday evening deadline. If you didn't submit your candle and have a joy or a sorrow to share this morning, please wait until the third candle is lit, the silent candle, and then type your joy or sorrow in the chat. Zoomers are invited to light silent candles at home. Those in the sanctuary are invited to light a candle at the table up front to the right of the Ecclesiam podium. In addition to sharing our sorrows and joys this morning, let's reach out to one another in the week ahead, staying connected. May these times remind us of how very precious this beloved community is. We need one another. Whether together or apart, may we stay very close. And now, in the spirit of invocation, let's join in singing Sanctuary. The words are printed in your order of service and in the chat.
Open my heart to be a sanctuary, all made holy, loved and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Some of us come today with heavy hearts. We open our hearts to you.
We have one candle of sorrow this morning from Laura Pattison. It's actually a mixed candle. Please keep my sister Lynn Pattison in your thoughts as she starts her second of 6 weeks of cancer treatments this coming week.
Open my heart to be a sanctuary, all made holy, loved and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a
Some of us come today in joy. We share your joy.
And we have one candle of joy and gratitude from the Arlington Street congregation. It's a candle of gratitude to John Anderson Miller for overseeing the restoration of the great doors and all the woodwork on the front of the church. Everything looks great.
Open my heart to be a sanctuary, all made holy, loved and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Open my heart to be a sanctuary, all made holy, loved and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
For all the sorrows and all the joys we hold in our hearts, we light a silent candle to remember and rejoice. May the peace of this sanctuary enter into our hearts as we share a quiet moment together, breathing our prayers for ourselves, for one another, for our country, and for the world. Amen.
Let's join now in saying together the affirmation and covenant of this beloved spiritual community. The words are printed in your order of service and in the chat. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak our truths in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de nuestra congregación, y el servicio es nuestro regalo. Esto es a lo que nos comprometemos, convivir en paz, hablar nuestras verdades con amor y ayudarnos los unos a los otros. And please rise for our second hymn, and rise in body or spirit as we sing our second hymn.
Do you hear, oh my friend, in the place where you stand, through the sky, through the land? Do you hear, in the heights, on the plain, in the vale, on the main, in the sun, in the rain? Do you hear? Through the roar, through the rush, through the throng, through the crush, do you hear in the hush of your soul, hear the cry, fear won't still, hear the heart's call to will, hear a sigh, startling trill in your soul, in your soul. From the place where you stand to the outermost strand, do you hear, oh my friend? Do you hear, all the dreams, all the dares, all the sighs, all the prayers? They are yours, mine and theirs. Do you hear,
It's a hot summer day, 1968, at my family's home in Washington, D.C. My friends are abuzz. They just found out there's a lady out back who's going to hold a Bible school class, and there are going to be cookies. At 4 years old, I don't know what a Bible is, but we all know if there are cookies, we want in on this. I asked my somewhat harried, completely Jewish mother if I can go to Bible school in the alley, and she concedes so quickly I almost think something is wrong. In retrospect, any relief from having me underfoot that day was okay with her, even a Bible school with a cookie-toting stranger. We rush out to the alley, into the vacant lot behind my house, and sit down on mats among weeds with other kids from the neighborhood. The lady pours punch into a small waxen paper cup for each of us and doles out the promised cookies. Then she sits down upon a box and begins to read us a story from a book, turning the pages and showing us pictures. Now, I love stories, and reading with my mom is always the highlight of my day. Mom reads me inventive tales of things that can't possibly be true, but are fun to imagine. Things like dogs driving cars, how an improbable crowd of animals in a winter forest use a lost mitten as a makeshift sleeping bag. And our favorite, the one with the old lady bunny in the rocking chair whispering, "Hush." But this time, the story is very different. What becomes clear to me from the lady is this utterly fantastic story is supposed to be completely true. Almost instantly in my bones, I know a few things for sure. Number one, the cookies were a ploy, and now that I've eaten them, I can't leave. Number two, it's very, very important to the lady that I believe this story is true. Number three, I know this story can't possibly be true, at least not the way she's telling it. And number four, through believing this story, she wants to control me. Though I don't understand everything, I instinctively know I've encountered something very, very big for the first time, and that I shouldn't tell anyone what I really think, because if I do, there might be big trouble. I quietly come home and I don't talk about what happened, but that incident has lived with me ever since. I think it's the first time I remember encountering the holy. Surely not in the fantastic biblical tale the lady told us, but in the innate divine response within me. That was the moment when I discovered the power of my self-determination. From that time forward, I wasn't the same boy who accepted everything laid before him. I began to examine everything for myself, and it was I and I alone who would determine what to believe and what I would do with my life. This principle of self-determination has been a bedrock of my existence, but it hasn't always been easy. Sometimes my initial beliefs have been incorrect. I've had to be open and humble enough to self-correct and have the strength to admit I was wrong. Other times I've had to conceal my beliefs to exist in an unsafe space or advance higher goals. About 15 years ago, I was here in the sanctuary listening to one of Reverend Kim's sermons. She spoke about Mother Teresa and her work with the poor of Calcutta. Reverend Kim referred to Mother Teresa's admonition not to turn away from those most in need, but instead to view such people as Christ in all of his distressing disguises. Now known as Saint Teresa of Calcutta, she was canonized by the Vatican for purportedly curing a woman of an abdominal tumor. But for me, the real miracle were her transformational words that allowed this devoted secular Jew to understand Jesus not as a man, but instead as a metaphor, a plea for devotion to the needs of humanity in all of its painful expressions. That homily made me recall a Sunday morning from the early 1990s when I was walking westward on Boylston Street with my friend Chris. As we were walking, we were engaged several times by homeless people asking for money. Each time, I didn't respond to them. I continued forward in conversation with my friend. But each time, Chris looked the person directly in the eye, smiled, and said, "Good morning." Even though he didn't give them money, he consistently received a warm and friendly response. "I think it's important," Chris said to me, "to respond to them, to give them the same dignity of recognition as you would for anyone else who talked to you." Chris saw the holy in them. His example was a wake-up call for me to stop looking so much at my needs and comfort and to develop a greater awareness of the needs of others and the wholeness of our interconnected existence. It was another transcendent, holy moment from which I've never recovered. Where I grew up in suburban Washington, D.C., there was a community pool. It was surrounded by a high chain-link fence, and on warm days, the pool was a hive of activity. My friends and I longed to swim there. Each time our parents drove past it with us, we silently stared through the car window at the gleeful swimmers. Intuitively, we all knew without having to be told not to ask if we could go. And we never did. In the center of Montgomery, Alabama's Oak Park, there's a large, flat expanse of grass ringed by mature oak trees. Things are quiet there these days. The park has few visitors, but it wasn't always this way. 10 feet below the expanse of grass is the buried shell of what was once a large, dazzling swimming pool that could accommodate more than 1,000 people. Such elaborate pools were once commonplace across the U.S. Starting in the 1920s and expanded by WPA projects, by World War II, more than 2,000 such grand pools were built across the country. In pre-air-conditioned times, these places were the best way to beat the summer heat for everyone. Except, not everyone. You see, many of these pools were reserved for whites only. In the 1950s, the NAACP argued in courts on behalf of African Americans whose tax dollars partially paid for these resources, arguing they should be open to all. When courts began to order equal access to these public accommodations, many cities refused and shuttered the pools. Accordingly, effective January 1st, 1959, the City Council of Montgomery, Alabama, chose to drain and bury the grand pool rather than share it. And this happened all across the country, from Alabama to Ohio to Washington State. It's a curiosity that so many white people decided to lose out on something they once valued, something they chose to destroy, a nice thing, rather than share it. In her book, The Sum of Us, What Racism Costs Everyone and How We Can Prosper Together, Heather McGee, a researcher and policy expert, recounts such historic events and asks the haunting question, why can't we have nice things? And she's not just talking about swimming pools of yesteryear. She's referring to high-quality, well-funded public schools, safe and reliable public transportation, health care for all, robust access to voting, and a safe water supply. As a nation, our roads, bridges, and water systems get a D+ from the American Society of Civil Engineers. America, the country that 70 years ago built an interstate highway system and power grid that was the envy of the world, now a D+? What happened? And so I ask you, why can't Americans have nice things? Ms. McGee posits the root of the problem is in part due to the notion of a zero-sum game mindset that many Americans have been sold. For me to do better, you have to do worse. However, this contradicts the growth-minded spirit of America and how experts understand economics, that growth begets growth. We can all benefit when we stand together in solidarity. But if we act as it's me against you, we can all lose out on having nice things. But is this type of collaboration possible anymore? I think it is. Sometimes we have to take a look back in order to envision the possibility of a mutually beneficial shared future. Swope Park, Kansas City, Missouri. Just like in Montgomery in the early 1950s, Kansas City initially closed their pools when courts ordered integration. But the community came together, and in 1954, a group of black and whites showed up and swam together. And so the grand pool still stands in service. Through self-determination and solidarity, these citizens bet on the collective, and their investment exists for the benefit of everyone today. Upon entering junior high school, an older friend told me I should join an afternoon program, the Ecology Club. The Ecology Club is cool, he told me. I wasn't, but I joined anyway. Mrs. Metz taught us about the interdependent web of life in which we lived. Another holy moment in my young life. We'd go out into local streams, testing water quality and noting the wildlife. Today I recycle almost as a spiritual discipline, drive a hybrid car, have installed solar panels on my home, and during the pandemic, installed 3 beehives. All of this because of what this visionary teacher taught me almost 50 years ago. However, when I return home and drive past the streams that we once tested, they're all choked with tall grasses, barely flowing anymore. The fish, all gone. Phosphates in the runoff doomed them decades ago. So in 2015, when I first heard there was a problem with the water in Flint, Michigan, it got my attention. The city of Flint was in receivership, and as a maneuver to save money, the emergency manager and county officials changed the water supply from Lake Huron to the Flint River. They failed to apply corrosion inhibitors to the water, which resulted in lead from aging pipes leaching into the water supply, exposing nearly 100,000 residents to elevated lead levels. The citizens of Flint had a nice thing in their original safe water supply, but when the wholeness of their voices was removed from the conversation, it went away. My paternal great-grandmother's family is from Memphis, home of the blues. I long to go there and have a glimpse of what was once familiar to them. In 2021, across historically black Memphis neighborhoods, notes began to appear on front doors. A company building a petroleum pipeline was offering money for access to land. While some residents took the money, many others said no. In response, the company tried to sue residents on the basis of eminent domain, a right reserved for governments, not private businesses. Something you should know. Memphis is known for their good water. The water sits upon an enormous aquifer. Rainwater from thousands of years ago, before the time of man-made chemicals and pollutants, provides the residents some of the highest quality drinking water in the world. At 57 million gallons, it's enough to last over 1,000 years. That is, barring an accident like the rupture of a petroleum pipeline. You see, in a case like this, pollution originating on the dark side of town would have devastating effects for all of Memphis. The largely white environmental coalition, Protect Our Aquifer, had gotten little traction from their efforts in the press to stop the pipeline. The black citizens hadn't gotten any further, appealing to elected officials. At a public hearing, when the pipeline company was asked why they decided to locate the pipeline through historically black neighborhoods, they accidentally said the quiet part out loud, responding, they were taking the path of least resistance. That's all that was needed for a cataract of resistance to emerge from across all of Memphis. And once the entire city came together, the plans for the pipeline were abandoned. Acting alone, neither side succeeded. Together, they prevailed to protect the aquifer. This, my friends, is the solidarity dividend. It's November 5th, 1974, Seabrook, Maryland. If discovering my self-determination was my introduction to the holy, today is my baptism. My mother is the officiant, and I am consecrated in the most unlikely of places, my elementary school assembly room. It's election day, and my mother has brought me to this familiar space that has been transformed into our local polling station. The lunch tables have been folded aside and replaced by the magnificence of something I'd never seen before: voting booths. While I was raised without the pageantry of religious services, this secular exercise has all the drama and ritual of any sacred mass, and I'm mesmerized. Mom checks in at the front desk and they give her an IBM punch card. We wait our turn in line, gradually making our way to the front. Then Mom hands the poll worker the punch card and they slip it into the voting booth slot. Mom carefully ushers me into the space and places my hand on the red handle, and together we move it from left to right. The curtains close and time stops for everyone but us. A light from above glows down upon complex columns of names. Mom leans over and whispers to me, "These are the names of the candidates. You pull the lever for the person you want to vote for like this. And this," she extends her index finger in awe, "this is the Democratic Party ticket. That's the one we want." She lifts me up, and together we extend our fingers, depress the lever, and almost magically the column of levers for the entire slate moves into place. "That's it," she says in a hushed voice, setting me down. Together we move the red handle from right to left, the curtains open, and we return to the world. As a person raised entirely in the secular world, this is one of the holiest moments of my life. My mother knew the importance of teaching me the sacred value of the vote. Mom knew our vote was our voice, and she intended to be heard. My parents were not trivial people. They paid attention and were well informed because their families had suffered profound cruelty in the years before as a consequence of the politics of fear, division, and greed. Because of politics, Mom's family suffered under the anti-Semitic conflagrations that swept through the Pale of Settlement in Eastern Europe at the turn of the last century. They lost homes, businesses, communities, rivers, and continents, but found their safety and destiny in Toronto, Detroit, and Pittsburgh, where the family struggled and flourished. Because of politics, my father's family suffered under 400 years of slavery, 100 years of the scourge known as Jim Crow. He served in World War II in the Pacific Theater and told me of the proud day his ship returned home, sailing beneath the majesty of the Golden Gate Bridge. The men standing on the ship's deck with tears unashamedly streaming down their faces. It was so good to be home again. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone more patriotic than my dad, but when he returned to civilian life, he didn't enjoy equity in housing, employment, or higher education, and it would be another 22 years before he could vote in a presidential election. My parents knew at a gut level the importance of needing to be aware, and they were determined to impress upon us the need to be active and informed participants in the shared communal gift of American democracy. For me, voting is the crown jewel of nice things. Not that long ago in Florida, the right to vote was permanently lost by anyone convicted of a felony, known as felony disenfranchisement. Neil Volz is a conservative former congressional staffer who participated in the high-profile 2006 Abramoff scandal. After pleading guilty to criminal conspiracy and fulfilling his sentence, Neil found employment difficult to find. Transformed by the experience, but still conservative, he worked the night shift as a janitor and volunteered for organizations that embraced the culture of second chances. And by chance, he met Desmond Meade, an attorney whose goal was to dismantle felony disenfranchisement. Desmond, who previously served a drug felony sentence, had returned to his community where he obtained a college degree and then a law degree. Desmond, now a MacArthur Genius Award winner, was the progressive founder of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. Both men were deeply invested in their communities. Both men had served their sentences. Both men denied the right to vote in Florida. Still, Neil was conservative of progressive types. Desmond is dedicated to the principle of collaboration, saying, "The minute I don't make an effort to understand my opposition's point of view, it makes it impossible for me to be in relationship with them." Desmond drew Neil into partnership by telling him, "I don't have a monopoly on suffering, nor do I have a monopoly on solutions." In order to prevail, they needed each other. At the time, more than 1.5 million Floridians were in a similar predicament. The origin of felony disenfranchisement has its roots in Jim Crow era laws, but by 2015, more whites, many of them conservative, were affected than blacks. With no workable solution from the State House, Desmond and Neil took their issue to the voters. Their ambitious plan, a constitutional amendment. Getting the amendment on the ballot would require more than 766,000 registered voters to sign a petition. By definition, none of the signers could be affected. If successful, the question would be put to the electorate, requiring a 60% supermajority. Only a bipartisan effort would be successful. So they set to work across every county, every community, every grocery store in the state, approaching voters of all backgrounds. The radical approach was to ask voters, has anyone you love ever made a mistake? And it worked. On November 6, 2018, the amendment was adopted, garnishing almost 65% of the votes. 1 million more voters voted for the amendment than voted for governor on the same ballot. How in this era of political division did a bipartisan supermajority create this nice thing? Rather than focus on what divides us, they focused on a message of love, forgiveness, redemption, and restoration. Again, my friends, this is the solidarity dividend. It's funny, that community pool that I told you about, it's never been entirely clear to me if we were forbidden to swim there or if we were just very much unwelcome. I guess it shouldn't matter anymore, it's been so long. 20 years after I moved away, I returned home to visit my mom, and I drove past the pool. It looked so puny, so ordinary, insignificant, not worthy enough, not nice enough to get worked up over, but it still bothered me. And last year when I drove past it again, there was nothing but a wide open field. The pool, the fence, the bathhouse, even the snack shop, all gone. Everything about it had vanished, except the pain. I expect the way things change so quickly, I'm probably the only one who even thinks about that pool anymore. In a few years, maybe enough new people have moved in that no one will ever remember anything that space was other than an open field. But I want you to know, while the community may have forgotten what happened at that swimming pool, I'll never forget what that swimming pool did to our community. This is an extraordinary time of opportunity for all of us to make a difference. But we can't do it single-handedly. I can recycle and put up solar panels, but I alone can't stop global warming. I can teach and mentor students, but I alone can't create well-funded, high-quality schools. I can vote in every election, but I alone can't build a movement that is responsive to the needs of everyday people across the nation. These things can only be done when we come together as a collective. We can have nice things, but in order to have them, we're going to have to build a space where we can stand together, swim together, march together, and vote together. We're going to have to summon the self-determination to sow a culture of wholeness to reap the solidarity dividend. This has been a conversation about swimming pools, And this has also very much not been a conversation about swimming pools. You know, I'm starting to think that if people from the poor side and rich side of Memphis were able to protect their water supply, if the people of Kansas City could protect their swimming pool, if the people in Kansas could come together to protect reproductive choice, if the people of Florida from across the political spectrum could restore voting rights to those who have erred in a campaign based on love and redemption, each of us and all of us, through workful hope and solidarity, might, just might, be able to give America another chance. A chance to step back from the dangerous precipice onto which we've strayed. My beloved spiritual companions, what I know after seeking and seeing the holy over these many years is that each of you and all of you are worthy and deserving of having nice things. Perhaps by sheer collective self-determination and by recognizing that we all live under the same sky, drink from the same well, are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, clothed in a single garment of destiny, perhaps, just perhaps, we'll get to that promised land together. Amen.
Arlington Street is entirely self-sustaining. It's up to us, and our generosity continues to be astounding. Thank you for your commitment to our staff, our building, and our beloved spiritual community. This summer, it's been great to be back into the sanctuary, even on the hot days. In summer 2020, of course, everyone was at home, speakers, musicians, all of us. Last summer, we dressed up summer services just a little bit by pre-recording everything, which typically meant that things were recorded either the day before or sometimes a week or two in advance. It also made for long Saturdays, as a lot of editing would be done that day. So this summer, I'm just very grateful that this community contributed as lavishly and generously as they did to the technology that we're using today, being able to provide hybrid service for a couple dozen folks here in person, which is awesome to see you. And then more than twice that, 50 plus folks enjoying in the safety and hopefully coolness of their homes. So your generosity has made all of this possible. Please take a moment now to join me in giving to our beloved spiritual community and filling our virtual collection plate. You can mail a check to the church or use the envelopes in the pews, which can be handed to me or any of the ushers after the service. You can give online by scanning the QR code in the order of service or by giving at ascboston.org. You can also text your gift to the church by sending a message with the word GIVE, G-I-V-E, to 617-300-0509. Each Sunday, we share a collection plate with a partner in our mission of love, service, justice, and peace. This summer, as always, we're directing our gifts to the Emergency Response Fund. Over the years, we've used this money to support survivors of local emergencies and to help in rescue and rebuilding efforts following natural and unnatural disasters nationally and around the world. That includes Greater Boston, as well as New Orleans, Houston, Puerto Rico, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, Nepal, Thailand, Haiti, the Philippines, Afghanistan, and the Ukraine. Thank you for your generosity. There are weekly gatherings in the Zoom room for loving kindness, meditation, poetry, yoga, and writing. Every Wednesday, including throughout the summer, Reverend Kim and Reverend Beth host a tea party with a conversation prompt. It's a lot of fun. Information and Zoom room links are at aseboston.org. You don't have to be a member, you don't have to turn on your video or talk if you don't want to, and they're all free. All are always welcome. Following the service, everyone is welcome to join the virtual coffee hour. If you'd like to participate, please answer yes to the breakout room invitation that will appear on your screen. Herschel and I will be out front. If you're here in person, please come say hello after virtual coffee hour. Thanks to all of you who joined in today's service and to all those who made it possible. Remember, we're all in this together. And please rise as you're willing or able and join in singing the last hymn.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Before our benediction, I invite those of you in the Zoom room to please reach out your hands and touch the sides of your square, and those of you in the sanctuary to please raise your hands, palm out. Let's send loving kindness to the people to your left and to your right. Send loving kindness to the person on either side of you and on either side of them. Send out love into this beloved spiritual community and feel it coming back to you. Love is the spirit of this congregation. And now for our benediction, I invite you to put your hands over your heart in namaste. I bow to the divine in you. Today we end with the words from Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. my beloved spiritual companions, when we find the power and grace to stand together, to march together, to vote together, and swim in the great river of life together, then we shall truly all be free. Let us keep this faith, beloveds, and pass it on. The service begins when this service ends. Bless your hearts. You are loved.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine.
Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.